Hey, little weirdo. Harvard, you want to come up here? You'd like to learn about real estate. Would you like me to tell you about the current market? You are very handsome. Therefore, we will find you a very handsome home. Are you pre-approved? Are you working with any other agents? Would you like to sign a buyer agency agreement? Oh, you have a home you would also like to sell? Fabulous. Let's get that on the books, and then we'll find you something fancy. What are you pre-approved for? How much money do you have to put down? I bet you. You're killing me. Dr. Harvard. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
I'm sitting here at a mock buyer agency meeting with my dog. How are you doing?
I am doing okay. How are you doing?
I am so great. I may have to dip out of this call if I get a call back from another agent.
Oh, yeah.
I have a very apprehensive client, my very first person that I signed on New Year's Eve, actually. She finally wants to start looking, so we're gonna go look at some.
That's exciting.
Yeah, so that's really great.
Hey there.
Marty.
What's your setup out there? You like picnicking? That's so cute.
It's my patio.
Nice. Little dog pal.
Yep. We were having a buyer agency meeting, but he doesn't have any credit, so we're screwed.
Good thing you took time to qualify him before you took him on showings.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Cool. Well, let's see. We've got a new person that's going to be joining us, it looks like.
Good.
Yeah. Check my text from Mandy here.
Hello.
We'll give people, we got a few more minutes. Oh, and if you have paper and a pen handy or want to take notes on your phone, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions to think about.
I have all that stuff.
Fab.
I apologize in advance if I have to step away because I am expecting a call back from a seller's agent. My very first client, the one I signed on New Year's Eve, she's like, I need to give them 60 days notice. My lease is ending in July. And I was like, I know. She's like, oh, I like this condo that you sent me. I also gave her Mother's Day stuff. So she's like, yeah, let's go look at it.
There you go.
So let's hope.
Top of mind. Sometimes they just need a little nudge. Oh yeah, I forgot. I was looking for a house or a condo.
Mm-hmm.
Hey guys.
But
Hey Mandy, nice to see your face.
I know. I kind of just wanted to pop on and say hi because I miss you
Hi.
guys.
We miss you
I'm here
too.
to provide no value, but just to say hello.
Hey, your being here adds value.
I'm really hoping everyone sees my new link too. So I'll just kind of monitor it, and like if people are texting me, I'll reroute them.
Cool. Okay.
Gotta
Awesome.
love this technology thing, right?
Yeah. I continue to be blown away by how on top of this stuff you guys are. So
Oh, well,
that's
good. I
awesome.
dropped the ball today, so that's good. You still feel that way.
Don't even worry about it.
Oh my
I mean,
gosh,
people,
Liz, I thought that was a virtual background until the dog started moving.
right?
this is my patio.
It looks amazing.
Very picturesque.
Yeah, I was like, that can't be real. How are you guys?
Really good.
Good.
Yeah. I'm like fired up every time we do those like awards for the month.
You
like,
were top of like
ooh,
3.
I'm coming for you.
Yeah, you had a great month, Amanda.
Like,
I always
Marcus,
like-
where did he come from?
I know. I always like doing them. Like sometimes things surprise me and I like do it 3 times. I'm like, no, that's accurate. Okay.
What?
Like,
Yeah.
exciting.
I know.
My brain
Molitor's
had a
killing
huge
it.
month, and
Yeah.
he really is.
It's fun to see the people, like Charlie was saying, like 4 through 10. It's really fun to see how that changes.
I always like looking at their faces too, because they're always just like like eyeing each other down, like bring it on. Newbie and Laura Brewster
I
always are
almost
so
chatted.
funny.
I was like,
Fuel the fire.
It's healthy competition. Yeah. I
Totally.
do benefit
We're all
from insulating
competitive.
myself though. Like, yeah, I get like, I'm like fired up, but then I'm like, oh, what am I doing wrong? I'm like, honestly, Amanda, would you chill out?
That's so funny.
Yeah.
I'm gonna text the new person. I don't think she's in any of these groups yet, so she's probably on the wrong chat. Let's see.
Hey T Rose, what's up?
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Good. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. It's been interesting. My wife works at Freighters, so she's been working these long 12-hour shifts and comes home, and we got to make sure that we give her kind of a wide berth to be able to get cleaned up, eat, and relax for about an hour, and then go to sleep, repeat, that kind of thing. So
Man.
Yeah.
it's been heavy.
Yeah.
How's everyone else? It sounds like there was a lot to celebrate during the meeting this morning. As far as camping.
Yeah, we've got some good production happening. People are making it work. Not everybody is though, my goodness. Those other broker numbers were whew.
Yeah, you guys should definitely try to come to Karen Trimble's thing tomorrow. I mean, they did 2.5 million last month with all this going on. So I'm excited to hear how she's been kind of doing this all virtually. So she's had a lot of success.
Yeah.
What time is that?
Pretty cool. It's at 11. I sounded questiony, so I'm going to double check.
I think it's at 11.
Let's see. Yeah, it's at 11 tomorrow.
Perfect.
Cool.
I'm in.
I'll
right, we
report
got
it
some
too
more
if people
people
can't
here.
come.
Heidi, Jackie. Welcome, Kathleen. Cool. Now we got a crew. I was kind of holding out. Well, we might have some people pop in with the new number.
Yeah,
but
thanks for being
sending that out,
flexible,
Mandy.
guys. Yeah, you're welcome. I'll keep an eye on
Yeah.
it. So I'll let you take over here.
Thanks. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to launch. So today I thought it would be good to go back to goals. And I thought today was a perfect day for it since we just saw all the awards and lore numbers for people's production in April. As you can see, even international pandemic does not stop real estate from happening if you are focused. So, and I think the biggest way to make that happen is to have goals, and not just like a fuzzy thing in your head, but like goals on paper, goals that you're tracking, goals that you're really focused on. And so I thought what may be helpful, looking at Bold and listening to Gary and the podcasts they've been putting out lately, one of the things he always goes back to is if you want to do something successfully, look at the people who are doing it successfully or who have done it successfully. So looking at the models or the ways other people are doing things and, kind of making that your own. So to some extent, that's what I've done over time. I've definitely taken some inspiration from other people who are, doing really well in the business, and just kind of getting advice from them and also getting their perspective on what I'm doing. So having that accountability and kind of community feature, I think, is really important because nobody gets to the top by themselves. Nobody. We all do this with the help of others, whether they're directly helping us or just inspiring us. And I am no exception to that. So I thought I would talk a little bit about how I've set my goals for the year, just to give you an example. And I want to touch on some basic things that come from The One Thing. If you haven't read the book, The One Thing, it's a really approachable read, and there's an excellent podcast. So if you're somebody who's a little distractible like I am, listening to the podcast is a great way to get all the tenets of the book with examples. And it's a great podcast. It's definitely worth listening to. So if you haven't done that before, check out the One Thing podcast. And then they have like a whole system of stuff tied around the book. So I've got a planner here that I'm gonna send Mandy PDFs from later today so that she can send that out to you. We can put it on the group page. So you could potentially use that to build your goals out. I also have a workbook from The One Thing. It's okay. It's not really from Jay and Gary. It's from somebody else. But I'm going to pull some things from that. And I want to ask you about your goals, because one of the big pieces of having goals that actually motivate you and really making goals work for you, that accountability piece is huge. So putting it out there, what you're going for, I think is important too. And I want to really stress that whatever your goals are, they're your goals. So if you're not on the top 10 chart every month and you're hitting your goals, like that's what it's about. When I started with Keller Williams, I'm a super competitive person. And so seeing my name in the top 3 was like utmost importance. The first year I was there, or the end of the year of the first year I was at KW, I was number 1, and then Sarah Oberbrunner came to town and blew me out of the water. And it was hard to not be disappointed, which is ridiculous, really, because I had my own goals. I still had a great year last year, but it felt disappointing because I got so caught up in how it compared to other people that I lost sight of my own goals. And really that's what it's about. So for me, I appreciate the competition of our of those lists every month, but I have to give them only a certain amount of value, because ultimately it's about where I stand with my own goals, and being very in touch and having a relationship with those goals is so important. If I start to feel like I'm lost or I start to feel upset about what's happening, or I think I'm doing fabulous, I go back to those goals and I'm like, where do I really stand? How do I compare to where I need to be to get to the goals I have for this month, this week, this quarter, this year, you know, on the trajectory to my 3 and 5 year goals? This is all something I need to be in touch with, or I just go off the rails and then, you know, years gone by and where am I? So is anybody feeling kind of lost right now? Do you have some goals in place? Are you feeling like you need something to guide your activities right now? Some kind of, you know, something to reach for? Anybody? You can chat it. You can talk it. It's cool. We're not that big of a group.
With you. I think what you posted last night about goals. So I sat down in front of my computer and I wrote stuff out and I was like, is this doable? Is this possible? Can I still do what I wanted to do at the beginning of 2020 by the end of 2020? And I think it is. It's not completely absurd, but I think I can do it. And I'm making all the steps towards that and I'm getting there. So.
Awesome. And that is a good point. When COVID hit and stay at home hit, I had a week of really good activity. And then when stay at home really went into place, I had about 2 weeks of very slow activity. And part of that, I think, was because I was a little burned out, so I needed it. And part of it is because people were not sure what to do, including myself. I kind of lost sight of my goals completely. I was like, well, it's COVID, so this is out the window. But that's not necessarily true. And it took me a little bit of time to kind of readjust and figure out what I needed the year to be from the perspective of, can I pay my assistant? Can I pay my bills? What would I like to end up with at the end of the year? And also what's realistic with what's going on being a little bit of a mystery, and then what's a stretch. And really a goal that you're setting, you should have a stretch goal. And, you know, for me, for somebody who has such a ridiculous stretch goal, I need something that's more realistic as like a benchmark. So we have for our team, like a goal for the year that's like, we absolutely have to hit this benchmark, but we really have this stretch goal, and that's what I'm pushing myself towards. So when I'm feeling like I'm not doing well or I'm not getting where I need to be, I look at my achievable, you know, very reasonable goal as like a measurement. And then I look at my stretch goal as motivation. And that's really what's going to propel you forward. So like for us, for me and my assistant Liz, this year, 2020, our goal is 60 units, 12.5 million to 14 million. And the real focus is getting my average sale price up. So when everything else looks like it's falling around me, I can go back to that main focus. My one thing this year is to get my average sale price up above 250. It's been around 200 the whole time I've been in real estate. This year, we're focusing on getting that up. And along with that, we've broken down our number of units for the year. So one of the things that Charlie talked about, this was a number of months ago, we were all in person, was breaking down your goals by quarter and being aware of the fact that second quarter tends to be the most active. Last year for me, that was very true because I am tracking my goals and my production. I figured out that second quarter, because fourth quarter was so terrible, second quarter was 41% of my business, which was exhausting. And shouldn't have been that way. It could have been more balanced. And I had such a bad first quarter that I tried to overcompensate second quarter. I burned out third quarter, and by fourth quarter, everything was falling apart. So it was good for me to revisit that this year and say, okay, first quarter, we just missed goal because we know first quarter tends to be a little bit slower, but then the end of it, like January, February, March is usually pretty good. Second quarter tends to be very strong. But knowing what was going on with Corona, we actually dropped our goal for the second quarter a little bit and pushed some of it into the third, with the anticipation that our spring market would push into summer more so than it usually does. So understanding the seasonality of the business, I think, is an important piece of that. And then fourth quarter, we tried to keep fairly light. The cool thing is, because I'm tracking my goals right now, looking at second quarter, our second quarter goal is 16 units and 3.75 million, and we're already past that, just barely past it. So now I'm going back, because I'm checking this weekly, and I'm pulling some of the goals out of third quarter because it's still a bit of a mystery, and I'm plotting it into second quarter. So now that goal is being adjusted, and I'm trying to get to 20 units, and I'm trying to get to 4.5 million and pull some of that off of third or fourth quarter. And really, your goals can be a living, breathing thing like this. The reason I like breaking them down by quarter is that I have a much better handle on what's going on. If you've ever set a 1-year goal or like a New Year's resolution, and you're not breaking that down any further, how many of you have found that to be a successful situation? You make a goal for the whole year, it's January, and you're like, I got all year to do this. And then it's August and you haven't done boo, right? So breaking it down to smaller bits where you feel like the deadline is closer is very effective. I really like to use quarters. I think that's because of the seasonality of things, because an accepted offer to closing could be up to 2 months. That kind of helps me control things a little better and track more accurately. So for me, I'm looking at quarters. And I think that kind of, to some extent, kind of locks into the ebb and flow of our market traditionally. So that's how I broke down goals and how I've been adjusting them as I go. So my 1-year goal is still 16 units, 12.5 to 14 million. I'm still really focused on increasing my average sale price. But to get me there, instead of being like, cool, second quarter's done, I'll just wait till third quarter and see what happens, I'm adjusting and pushing more into second quarter to stretch myself, to push myself, to make sure that I'm still filling my pipeline, I'm still making appointments, those key activities to get me to my goal. And it helps me refocus whenever I'm feeling a little lost or fuzzy or distracted or full of excuses or bummed out because somebody's doing better than me. It just brings me back, refocuses me on not comparing myself to other people, but comparing myself to my goal, comparing myself to myself last year, comparing myself to what I know I'm capable of, and comparing myself to my big goal. That's what I should be focusing on. And that's what you should be focusing on. So if your goal is not as big as somebody else's, that doesn't matter. What matters is what is most important to you. Like, what is your why? What is the purpose of you doing this? Why are you in real estate? What money do you need to have to live, to save up for a vacation when we're allowed to do that again? What are your important things, and how can you build out a goal based on that? And there's a few things in the One Thing book, so I highly recommend that you get this book because there's some great visuals, and like I said, I'm very distractible, so a book with pictures in it that are charts explaining things is great for me. I'm really visual. But there's a few things in here that I think are really excellent pieces to refer to, and I'll see if I can get a decent enough image of these from the KW site. I don't know if Mandy's still on, but we'll pull some of these up for you as well. But again, these are in the One Thing book, and one of the images they have in here is the iceberg image. You guys see that?
Yeah.
So the thing that I think is really easy to forget when you see people who are really killing it, they're on that top 10 list every month, you just think, well, they're magic and I can't do that, is all we're seeing is their productivity. We are not seeing all the stuff under the surface. And that's the stuff that gets boring, that requires accountability. It requires some planning, it requires some tracking. It requires pulling yourself up out of a funk and doing stuff. And right now it's super easy to get caught in a funk. It's super easy to get caught up in everything going on. It's super easy to get distracted. But ultimately, you should be able to ask yourself, whatever I'm doing right now, does this lead me to my goal? And even if it's one simple, small goal for the day, the week, the month, you should be doing something that gets you towards that goal. And if you're not, then you can quickly switch gears and do something that is. Whenever I get lost, the first thing I ask myself is, do I have appointments this week? Do I have any appointments lined up this week? If I don't have showings or buyer consultations or listing consultations, I need to figure out what I've got to do to get those appointments, because I know appointments lead to business, and that's what my goals are built around. So, having that purpose in mind, your why, your ultimate why am I motivated to have this goal for the year? For me, I have a big plan. I'm getting a mixed use building. My husband's shop is going in there. We're going to upgrade our condo in the next few years. I got big plans. And to get there, I've got to take the step of this year to really give us a base to work off of. And then the next year is going to build off of that. So my purpose is, ultimately, I want to be in a position where we can donate to all of the causes we care about in a significant way. And that's my super major drive. That's like deep in my heart. So my purpose is driving me. And then from that purpose, I can figure out what my priorities are. So for me, it's building us to a stable point where we can have that foundation to donate. How do I get there? Then we're going to break it down smaller. So anybody else want to share any of their, even if it's not just this year, but like big goals, someday goals, 5-year goals? Why did you decide to get into real estate? Anybody? Is everyone here working this year without a goal?
Okay, I can't always be the first one to raise my hand. This is ridiculous, guys. Ultimate plans, like I build back from I have a 10-year goal and then back from there. So 10 years, I want to have a really solid real estate business and then relocate to California. So we're going backwards from there. So, and then my husband wants to stop doing what he's doing and just work from home, which all these things are doable. We just have to take the steps. So I need to buy a new car in the next year. So that's definitely one of my 1-year goals, but it's like little things to that point. What else you guys got?
Anybody? I'm checking the chat here too.
Can you hear me?
Amanda, let me ask you something. You were talking about raising the average, your average home sale price. So
Yes.
how do you go about doing that? I mean, you're especially right now where you can't necessarily help out your fellow agent maybe who needs somebody to show their property, which would lead maybe to a buyer looking in that particular area. Because I say this because I've been trying to work within a sphere, plus, try to be an expert in my particular area. And like Corey Bolt, she is just destroying Wauwatosa now. I mean, Firefly and Shore West Wauwatosa are on notice. I think that Corey Bolt, with all of her available assets for staging and such, I mean, she's going to do really well out here, but she has all the help that she basically needs. So how do you project going about, or how do you come up with a plan to raise your average price?
So it's a few things. One, it's about who you know, right? It's your sphere. So just being really mindful of the people that I already know, interact with, who trust me, who know me, and making sure that they remember what I do. that they see how I'm helping other people in that price range, you know, putting it out there that I'm working in a number of different areas, that I'm working in different price points, just making some conscious connections with people who I know are in that higher price point in a genuine way, but just being more aware of it. I'm also being very considerate of keeping in touch with people who I've sold homes to in the past. And if you don't have that history, you could be looking at houses in your neighborhood that have sold in the last 3 to 5 years as people who are looking to upgrade. And so that's part of my plan, is that sell and buy up. I am also farming and have plans to farm, you know, in a specific location where the price point is higher than where I've been working, but I have some sales in that location to kind of pull off of. So there's a number of activities that build off of that. And then honestly, it sounds hokey, but just knowing in my mind that I'm going to work in a higher price point this year makes me more focused on that. And that is what I see, you know, like if I'm shopping for a car and I'm thinking about a Subaru, everywhere I drive, I see Subarus. If I'm trying to find business and I want it to be over 250, then that's what I'm looking for and that's what I'm seeing. And then when something for 50,000 comes along, I can say to myself, what is my goal for the year? Does this get me to that goal? How can I approach this in a different way? And then I can decide, do I have time right now and it makes sense to just like do a quick sale with somebody? And that will lead me to my units goal and I can help them and maybe that will become more of a relationship. Or is this something that's distracting me from my goal and it makes more sense to refer them to somebody else? So it just helps me have a clearer idea of what I should and shouldn't be doing. And in effect, that leads me to that goal. So it's not just knowing what you should be doing, but also knowing what to say no to.
Your farming, are you using anything other than just flyers for your farming? I mean, are you doing mailers? Or are you doing something else? Something more exciting?
I'm doing door hangers. I'm doing mailers. I'm looking to build out like a community activity for the summer where people would like come out. So it's a number of things. The key is consistency. And I think it's easier to build that within a community of people you know, your sphere or your neighborhood. If you're picking a random location, I think that's a little bit trickier because you don't have anything to build off of and you're not going to be able to get FaceTime right away. So I think, again, go back to your goal. Like I need to make business happen in this year. I'm thinking about next year. So building out that farming could be a year out. It could be 6 months out before you see anything. So that can't be your only activity. You know, what else can you be doing right now? And for you guys, I think a big piece of that is just getting clients, buyers, sellers, you know, wherever they may be, whatever price point they may be in. You know, you decide, do you want to be really focused from the get-go on where you're going to work, what area, or do you want to just say whatever I can take and I'm going to dial it in later? I did that. I took any business I could get. I still do. I'm in 5 counties. I'm all the frick over the place. At some point, I'm going to rein that in because I don't want to be driving everywhere every day. But it's given me a really broad perspective on the market, and it means I can work with a lot of people. And then if my past clients decide to move somewhere, I work in that area too. So for me, that's worked really well, but not everybody wants to do that. And at some point, I will slowly shrink that area down and have some great referral partners and other ways that I can focus in on a smaller location and really saturate that market. So it's up to you how you want to go about it. But I think when you're thinking about your goals, if you don't have anything, you've got to have some dream, some reason you got into real estate, something that makes you like blush and giggle or just laugh out loud because you're like, this is ridiculous. It'll never happen, but it could. those things and then break it down from there. So there's a great chart in the one thing that breaks it down from your someday goal to your 5-year goal to a 1-year goal, then monthly, weekly, daily, and right now. And basically all that is doing is helping you stay focused on why am I doing this and what am I trying to accomplish? Because anytime you're feeling off track, wandering, you're probably so off course that you're failing on any sort of accomplishment whatsoever. It's happening so slowly you might not even notice it until we're 3/4 of the way through the year and you're like, oh crap, I've only had 1 sale. So this keeps you focused. And I think the other piece of that that's so important is keeping track, monitoring, putting it in a chart, drawing it on paper, holding yourself accountable. And sometimes that's, it's, for me, it's not always to make me feel like, oh shoot, I'm off track. It's more so to give me momentum. And momentum is so key. And if it means that you're not just saying, I have this many sales coming up, maybe it's saying, I have this many appointments coming up, or I have this many people that I'm working with right now, or I'm this far into my farming and I've been consistent about it and I've done these projects and I feel accomplished because of that. So you've got to give yourself an opportunity to celebrate those steps along the way. And when you're starting, it's not necessarily closings, or it's not necessarily accepted offers. It might be other steps into that direction. And some of that stuff is long game. If you were on the call a few weeks ago, we had Shannon on and Peter and Paula, and all of them were celebrating victories from a long game activity. They were putting in the time on the front end. They were building those relationships. They were connecting with people. They were making the phone calls, doing all those activities, and we're not seeing immediate results. And that doesn't mean they were failing. This is why I track my goals quarterly. If I were to only set a 1-week goal or 1-month goal and not have the bigger goals beyond that, then it would be really easy to feel like I was failing every week. And failing on those goals isn't necessarily the end of it, hitting a wall. That might be your opportunity to say, okay, maybe this goal isn't as realistic as I thought, or maybe the activities I thought I should be doing to get me to this point are not getting me there. So failure is not the end. That's your opportunity to reassess, reevaluate, adjust, and then charge forward. And you can do that on a daily or weekly basis. Where do I stand based on where I need to be? When I was new, a lot of my goals were just connecting with people. Did I have a conversation with somebody today? Did I find a way to genuinely remind people that I'm in real estate? Did I figure out a way to be top of mind? Am I coming from contribution? How is my attitude right now? Do I feel like my goals are realistic? Am I feeling good about those stretch goals? So I think, checking in with yourself and having somebody else to hold you accountable are important pieces of that. And I think having that, it took me a while to understand why it was so important to have these big, ridiculous goals. It's very easy for me to say, like, we have what we need. I don't need to be greedy. I'm just cool where I am. But at the end of the day, like, I only feel good when I'm growing and learning. And that ultimately means that I'm doing more business. I'm connecting with more people. I'm finding ways to do more in this business and with my business. And so I've got to have those bigger goals so I don't get to the point where I've outgrown something and then I'm going, oh, what do I do now? So you've got to have those big, crazy goals, those big beyond goals. You've got to have some big picture of where you want to be. That's when it actually happens. The people who have accomplished great things didn't accidentally find themselves there. They didn't just, do what felt natural and then all of a sudden they're a millionaire and they, are inspiring lots of people and they're doing all these great things, they're contributing to their community, you bet your butt they had a goal. They had a goal. They had big goals. They had smaller goals. They figured out a way to break it down, and their activities every day were leading to those results. And anytime, you know, nobody's on track every day. Nobody's perfect every day. I fall off course all the time, all the freaking time. I have my block schedule set up. I think I'm going to kill it this week. Then I kind of tumble into old habits, especially right now. And where did the week go? I'm like, okay, I could feel terrible about this and continue to spiral, or I could look at my goals. I could see where I stand. I could determine how many appointments I need to get me to that next step. And I could make some really conscious decisions about how I'm going to spend my time the rest of today or tomorrow or next week. And that's the other piece of goals that I think is so important. It keeps you focused on what activities you should be doing. It's not meant to make you feel bad. It's not meant to, make you feel greedy or give you an opportunity to compare yourself to everybody else. It's your chance to focus in on what's important to you. And that's really where your activities should be coming from. So if you, if you have a goal based on a number of transactions, how do you want to be approaching those transactions? Do you want to be known as an agent that's great to work with? Do you want to do such a great job for your clients that they want to refer you to their friends and family? Those are important goals too. And how do you ensure that happens? Make sure you've got your freaking top 5 handled. Be a confident agent and make sure you know how to write an offer and you've done it multiple times and you know what's in that offer, and you can do it on your phone, in your car, while you're driving, asking them questions. So by the time you get home to your computer, you can just write down the offer. Like, make those kinds of things your goals when you're new, and transactions aren't necessarily the thing that you can make happen as quickly. Have a number goal, but then focus on some other things too. It all ties together. I ultimately want to be able to sell this many homes a year. Well, that requires me to have some good repeat and referral business. How do I get that? I've got to do an excellent job for the people I'm working with, and I have to be seen as an expert in my field, and I've got to know my stuff. I can't fake it. How do I do that? I've got to have my top 5 down. I've got to understand a listing contract. I've got to have a system down for my buyer consultations. I've got to have people in my command. How am I going to connect with people if I don't have 100 people in my contacts? How am I going to easily, without it being a major project every time, reach out to those people in my sphere and start to build my business? You've got to have them in there. Do what works for you from there. Do postcards, do calls, do, social media contacts, whatever it is, you've got to have that in place. It's really easy to get distracted and say, well, how am I supposed to get business? I'm doing these top 5 things and it all feels like homework, and I have nothing going on, and where am I supposed to go from here, and I'm trapped at home. No, these 5 things are the base you need in order to do a great job. And I promise you, if you have the confidence of knowing you've got that stuff down, you're going to make more business happen. You're going to have more meaningful connections with people. You're going to build your clientele base. You're going to establish yourself as an expert. And when you have a client, you're going to be an awesome, awesome agent for them, so that they're shouting from the rooftops how great it was to work with you. And that's going to help you build your business. I didn't start day one with 50 transactions a year. And the people I worked with in my first 12 months in business are people I'm still working with. I have a new listing coming up. They were my 3rd sale back in 2015. I have dear friends who I've kept in touch with who sent me over 10 other clients. They were my 2nd sale in 2014. These relationships built over time, and there was a momentum that built over time, and my business grew over time. But I knew when I was starting out, even if I didn't have a ton of business going on, I stayed focused on my goal of being a stellar agent. It really bothered me that there were people out there working with agents who didn't know what they were doing, who didn't understand contracts, who made mistakes that cost their clients dearly, who didn't take it seriously. And I vowed to not ever be that agent. So I did everything I could to make sure that it was a stellar experience from my first transaction to now. And the way I could do that was by having these things in place and making sure if I didn't understand things, I was asking the right questions, and I was developing things based on what I saw successful people doing. That doesn't mean I was comparing. It means I was taking some notes from what they were doing and made it my own. And that's how I've been able to build such a strong referral and repeat business. And that continues to grow. So that's one way you can go about it. Ultimately, you can have all the leads in the world, but if you don't know what to do with them, if you can't confidently walk them through an offer and it doesn't take you 2 hours, you know, if you can't write a strong offer that's clean and will get accepted, if you can't communicate with that co-broke to make sure that you're doing everything possible to get your client what they need, then it doesn't matter how many leads you have. It doesn't. You have to be able to serve them well. And so if you're building out those goals based on numbers, do it. Have something to track. Have something to, you know, go back to and you know, have that motivation if that works for you, if numbers are your thing. But ultimately, you've got to have some of that quality in there too. It can't just be quantity. So when you're building out your goals, keep that in mind. Ultimately, you know, the people who are really successful have found a way to do this at a very high level. And that may mean that they've brought in other people who can help them and do things that they aren't great at. It may mean that they focus on what they were really strong at and, you know, made that work until they could afford to bring other people on to help them. You know, there are a number of ways to go about it, but ultimately it's about what you're reaching for, what's important to you, and what you're doing to get there. So it's very easy to get distracted by, you know, well, it's Corona, so this year's crap. No. You can see agents are doing that. You can see that in the numbers from Charlie this morning. There are agents who have said, well, this year's done, and they've just given up. There is business. I will say this again and again and again. There is business. I've got closings every month the rest of the quarter. People want to buy and sell, but they're not just floating over to me. I've got to make way more of an effort this year than I have in the past to connect with people, to reach out to them, to do those extra things, to put out a CMA to somebody or talk about a price point before I've got them under contract, you know, to work with me in a listing. I'm being a little more giving on the front end. I'm making more of an effort. I'm consciously connecting with whoever I can think of that might be at the point where they're ready to sell or buy. And I'm making every effort to get me to the point where I've got appointments, where I'm getting out there and meeting new people and tracking myself and making sure that I'm on point for those goals and adjusting as needed. I'm giving myself a little grace, but I'm also pushing myself more. It's really easy to get comfortable right now in a bad way. So it's important to bring you back to those goals. So building them out, big goal, 5-year, 1 year, you know, quarterly, monthly is really key. And you've got to give yourself time to do it. You can't just say, well, I'll track it when I have time. Block out that time in your schedule. Give yourself an uninterrupted time during the week to do those things. For me, it's at the end of the day, I got to see where I stand. What did I do? How did it go? What am I going to do better tomorrow? What do I need to follow up on? And then at the beginning of the day, I'm reviewing my day. I'm giving myself a little boost, a little affirmation. I'm checking my numbers once a week and seeing where I stand on that. I'm holding myself accountable, and I'm doing it on a regular basis. And if it's not working, I'm adjusting, and that's okay. Nobody says your goal has to be set in stone. You can adjust as you go. You know, ultimately, it's not about being on that list, unless for you, that's a motivator. Great. If it's not, if it crushes your dreams to see somebody else on there that's not you, then don't pay attention to that. Ultimately, focus on your own stuff. So it all comes down to, what can I do right now? So this image, you like how low tech I am? This is so great. It's like story time. So this domino image comes up a lot in the one thing. because what you're looking at is what's the one domino I can start with that 18 dominoes down the line can knock over the Leaning Tower of Pisa. That's a legit thing. It has so much momentum if you can like tap into those one thing to just get it going, not get distracted by shiny objects, and just focus in on that thing. For me, when I get totally lost and I veer off path, I'm going back to what appointments have I made today? If there's a project I've been working on that is very pivotal to how I'm doing my business, where do I stand with that project? So for you, have I written out an offer or two, and do I feel really confident with that? Because when it's time to write the offer, that's not the time to be hurriedly calling the helpline and expecting them to get back to you in 10 minutes and review your entire offer so you can turn it in an hour. That's not the time to do that. So do it ahead of time. You know, wondering how I'm going to find business when I've definitely got 100 people that I know. Build up your command, get them in there. Send out an email. It doesn't even have to be real estate related. Put out some love. How can I easily connect with these people? Oh, I've got this great system that's free. Get them in there. If you're not feeling good about how you're working with buyers so far, or not sure about the process or anything like that, build up your buyer consultation. It'll help you get a better grip on what the steps are from accepted offer to closing, how showings are working now, all that stuff. And you can pull information out of there so you can confidently bring it up in conversation when you're on a Zoom, when you're playing a game on your phone with your friends. You can, you know, they're going to ask you what's going on in real estate. It's good to know that stuff. So those things all come back to it. And then you build momentum, and that's the key. So what I want you to do right now, if you have not already, I want you to get out a piece of paper or your phone notes or your computer notes. And I want you to write down a big achievement that something you achieved in the past that was a huge achievement that made you feel really good. It was like, it could be small in the grand scope of life, but something that felt really major to you. I should have music playing. That's probably more distracting than anything. Okay, now I want you to write down, what do you think was the one thing that you did that got you to that goal? Break it down into something small. And if you can't quite get there, get to the smallest point you can. So you had this great achievement, it meant a lot to you. How the heck did you get there? What activities got you to that point? What mentality got you to that point? What decision got you to that point? Okay, now I want you to write down a goal that you did not achieve. Again, this can be big or small, something you thought you would have accomplished by a certain point in your life, or something that you had in mind to do that just didn't happen. It could be present, past. And why do you think that you didn't reach that goal? What do you think you weren't doing? Or what do you think got you off course? Why do you think you lost focus? And maybe the answer is, turns out that goal wasn't important to me. Turns out that goal didn't tie to my why. I thought I should be doing this, but I actually don't care about it at all. It's what I thought, you know, society thought I should be by this point or whatever. Okay. Now I want you to write down a someday goal. This should be big. Someday goal. I'm going to have a foundation. It's going to have $1 million in it. I'm going to be donating to all the cool things I care about in the city. It's going to be awesome. Whatever it is. I'm going to own my own house. I'm going to have a team, an awesome team. I'm going to have 90% of my business come from repeat and referral clients. I'm going to sell 10 million in real estate in a year. Whatever it is, big or small, what matters, it's important to you. Okay, now it should be big enough that you can break it down a little further. So to get to that big goal, how do you make a 5-year goal out of that? So for me, it's in 5 years. Well, really for me, it's 3 years, but I want to have a net worth of $1 million. So however you can break that down a little bit further. How am I going to get to the point where I can make this big goal happen? Well, what's going to support that? And 5 years. Can it happen in 5 years? Is it achievable? Is it a stretch? For me, it's achievable in 5, but I'm stretching myself to make it happen in 3. Okay, now I want you to break it down to a year. So in the next 12 months. So by this time next year, what should you have going on for you? And I know like with annual numbers and stuff that can get goofy. So for you, it's easier to look at like by the end of 2020 or by the end of 2021. What do you have to have accomplished to get you to that 5-year? The point being, it should become more tangible, should become more realistic, should become something a little more digestible. So we're going from like the whole shebang to like a hunk of it to a slice to a bite. Okay, so based on that, can you create a quarterly goal? So can you say for the next 3 months, or if you like working off a calendar for the rest of this quarter, or for 3rd quarter, give yourself a quarterly chunk of that 1-year goal. And if it's easier for you to take that 1 year and break it down into 4 quarters and kind of spread it out differently, it's not going to necessarily be the exact same thing every quarter. You know, for me, 60 units was 11 in the 1st quarter, was 16 in the 2nd quarter. It was broken down a little differently percentage-wise if you're looking at a number goal. Okay, so looking at that 3 months, can you shrink that down to 1 month? Can you break a piece of that down to a 1 month activity goal? And these are going to become more specific as you go. So I want to have a foundation. I want to be a net millionaire. I want to, how am I going to do that? I've got to get my sales to a certain number, but more importantly, I've got to get my profits to a certain number. So part of that is increasing my number of sales, my average sale price, my total sales, ultimately my GCI, and also watching my expenses. So I'm breaking that down further. Okay, well, how many appointments do I need this month to get that many sales within this quarter? And what can you do this week to get you to that 1 month goal? For me, it means I need to contact a certain number of people to make sure those appointments happen. So I've got to contact people. And I've got my number laid out and I know who I'm reaching out to. It's very intentional. People who are more likely to be people who would sell or buy or know somebody. All right, and then what can you do today? So for me, I've gotten off course with my time use. I didn't write out my whole week on Sunday like I should have. And I didn't use my time as well this morning as I should have. But instead of feeling bad about it, I'm going to focus on what I can do. What can I control? So I'm looking at the rest of the week and I'm blocking out my time. I know I need to reach out to people, so I need to have my list of who I'm contacting, how I'm going to reach out to them, and when. I'm blocking out my time. The one thing I've got to do is follow that schedule. Set it up, follow it. Are you seeing this as being something more achievable now that it's been broken down to such a small, digestible bite? What are you thinking? Anybody want to share any parts of their goal? Doesn't have to be the big one. It could be something in between. Nobody?
I'll share.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I didn't answer before because this is like my second Zoom ever, so I didn't know what the hell I was doing at all.
Oh, you're doing great.
Thanks. Well, going back to just like your goals and stuff, I feel like I'm still really trying to figure it out. I just got licensed last Thursday. So yeah, so I don't know anything, like, I mean, everyone's been there and I'm just like hopeful that I just have to keep reminding myself, maybe everyone else has been there. So I really don't know what I'm doing at all. So that's really a goal of mine, is to figure out my goals. But to follow what you just had us do, I think sometimes people's goals, like you were saying, small or big, can be silly even. And my mom was a realtor. I lost her a few years ago. And that's one of my passions of why I wanted to get into real estate, is I just really looked up to her. And she was a top producer in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And wherever we went, like, everyone knew her name and she knew who they were and knew their backstory. And I think that, like, that's kind of what I want to strive to be like. Not even so much about the money, but everyone likes money. But I would love to walk into my local grocery store and people know who I am, but more importantly, like, I know who they are. And about a year ago, we just moved from Chicago to Milwaukee. So I don't really have a sphere. And Chicago, like, everyone's hustle bustle, like, no one gives a shit about you, so that makes it more important to me, because, like, I didn't have that in Chicago and I currently don't have that because I'm kind of new here. So I guess it's a big goal that I would like people to know who I am, and me know who they are, and meet people. So that's the big goal. And breaking it down is probably trying to reach out to my community, my neighbors, like you were speaking with to T Rose or something. He was asking questions about, and you were responding about community and neighbors and things like that. So I think that really drove home with me, because that's something immediate that I have is my neighborhood, I guess. So doing postcards and things like that to generate leads that way.
Awesome. That's great. Man, I didn't even planter, you guys. This is perfect. So that's a really excellent example of, it doesn't always have to be about numbers. And especially when you're starting out, like I said, for me, I was new. I was at a different brokerage. We didn't have nearly the resources that you guys have here. And I had no clue what a good year looked like. I had no idea, because we didn't look at numbers like this in our meetings. And I didn't know what was typical for a first-year agent. I just knew that I wanted to provide excellent service and a great experience. And so that's where my goals started. And so that's an awesome example, Jackie. Is it Jackie?
Yeah, it's Jackie.
Okay.
Yeah, my mom was being clever with the spelling of my name too. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, but I think that's an awesome goal. I think it's much more tangible. It kind of gets you in the heart. You have a very strong why with your mom being the driving force behind that. And I think you can have some very clear activities that build out from that. And like you said, starting in your neighborhood is a great spot. And right now there's actually a great opportunity to where you have a captive audience to some extent. A lot of people are home. People are not as distracted. And so it's a great time to connect with them. So, postcards, or even Shannon Schultz has done this. Peter Gosman did this. I've done this, is like bringing a little something and like hanging it on their doorknobs. So what they've done is like a little calming tea and some seeds to plant and a little note and like their Keller Williams info at the bottom, but it doesn't say anything about real estate. It just says, I'm your neighbor and, whatever, I'm here for you. Or, I'd love to hear what your favorite thing is about the community, or whatever it is. You can approach it from not necessarily I'm a real estate agent, who do you know wants to buy or sell, but you can come from contribution and connection instead, and then kind of build off of that. And
do you think that it's bad if I do the opposite of that and do something being like, hey, I'm your neighbor, let me know if I can help you with anything, ... like that it is very agent forward?
I would be careful only because of the current climate. I think it's generally, I would say, as a broad brush across Wisconsin, I think people respond more positively to relationship-based reach out than they do to salesy reach out.
Sure.
I think people will turn off quickly if it seems like you're coming from a place, even that's not the intention, of like, I want your business.
Right.
People kind of, and especially right now, I think that might even work against you as being like in poor taste, even if we know business is happening. So yeah. I would encourage you to come from some other perspective. Like, I'm new and I love our neighborhood and I just wanted to, say hi. It could be that simple. Or, we're coming here from Chicago and I've just really appreciated how warm and welcoming the neighborhood has been. I just want to say thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great.
Yeah. And you could go as far as saying like, I'm going to do this thing in a few weeks and I'm offering it to you. Like, I'm going to, you could use the Red Day thing and say, I mean, that's in a couple of days, but you could say, we're collecting food for a food pantry. We're trying to help people in need. You could come from that perspective.
Okay.
But I think something not too complicated and something that feels genuine and is not asking for them to give you business, I think is the key. It's like step one. It's a long-term relationship. You're kind of building off of that first meeting. So you can kind of think of it like dating, right? Like you don't like walk up to somebody and be like, let's make out and then have babies and then get married and then buy a house. And let's do that all right now. Like, that's going to freak them out. So, little
okay,
steps.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else? You're welcome. Those were great. Thanks for sharing. Anybody else? No? Okay. Well, I encourage you to either connect with each other and share your goals, put them on the Facebook page, or reach out to me directly. I want to know that whatever you're working on, that you're coming from a perspective of working toward a goal. And it does not have to be complicated, and it does not have to be like blowing people away impressive. It's ultimately about, is it important to you? Is it driving you? Does it connect to your purpose and your why? And is it something you can break down into a one thing? Like, what should I be doing right now? What should I be doing this week? What should I be doing this month? What should I be doing this quarter? Am I keeping track of it? Is it measurable? Am I holding myself accountable? And maybe I'm connecting with somebody else to hold me accountable too. that should be what you come back to. So if you're feeling lost, if you're feeling like you don't know where to start, you know, those top 5 things are there as activities you should be working on, but you've got to find your reason within those 5 things to really make you want to do them, right? Because they're not the most fun, but they're super important to you building your business and getting to those next steps. So if you're feeling lost, go to those top 5. Okay, how can I make these things important to me? And that ultimately means having those goals in place. And how can I break that down and pull from there? It's a lot to do. There's a lot of distractions, and that's always going to be true. It's not like you're going to get out of the launch program and then everything's going to be set and you're never going to be distracted. You're always going to have everything in order and there's never going to be new things. Like there's always going to be stuff, always. So it's so key that you are focused and you know what your path is and you know where you're going and you're not distracted by comparison. You're not distracted by other people's success or failures. You are on your path. You are utilizing your community and supporting each other and knowing you're not getting there by yourself, but ultimately you are accountable to you. So make sure you're building off of your goals in that way. There's a whole lot of info out there about how you can do that. The MREA, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, has some great stuff in it. The One Thing has some great stuff in it. Whenever I'm feeling lost about goals, I just pull up podcasts and I pull up The One Thing, or I pull up the Brian Buffini Show. I pull up something that's going to help me refocus on my goals. And then I take some thinking time that I block out in my schedule to build backwards and make sure I'm doing what I should be doing right now. So when you're lost, your goals should get you back on track. And if your goals are totally, you find that they're, you know, not working, adjust. That's okay. That's not a failure. That's, you know, you're learning as you go. So hopefully you found this helpful. Janine is going to be working more on mindset and building some things off of Bold. If you didn't sign up for Bold, there are some great bits of information from there that she's going to be pulling into productivity. And I'm going to continue to build off of that with Launch as well. I know that program might be overwhelming when you're new. So we want to make sure we're kind of filtering some info to you that might be helpful from that. But just know you've got a ton of resources and we're here to support you. Ultimately, it's up to you. And I think building off of your goals is a good way to help you feel tied to what's happening and not kind of floating in the ethos without direction. So hopefully that has helped you today. And I hope you guys have a great week. Stay focused.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming.
See you soon.